The 80s was the decade of the legendary guitarist. This was the age of the rock guitar solo, where every song had to have at least one finger-searing, ear-piercing, hair-tingling demonstration of guitar virtuosity. So in the last year of the 80s, what were the 10 best guitar solos?
Liquid Machines.
Now I've put these in no particular order, and also there can only be one solo from each artist. So even though Flying in a Blue Dream came out this year, I had to pick only one solo from it. And spoilers, there is a Satch solo on this list. Also, the solo had to come from a studio album that was released in '89, so no live albums or other recordings. What qualifies as a great solo? Well, that's a highly personal thing, and my list may well ruffle some feathers. But who cares? It's my damn list. For me, a solo has to have something interesting going on. It can't just be all but as a fan of rock, there's undoubtedly going to be some shredding going on. Now this was a period with so many amazing guitar gods that the choice is not easy. But without further ado, here is my list of the best guitar solos of 1989. Jeff Beck is one of the most well-known guitar superstars. He played in the Yardbirds from 1965, following in the footsteps of Eric Clapton. He got fired for difficulties with his tardiness, perfectionism, and explosive temper. In 1967, he formed the Jeff Beck Group, which included Rod Stewart on vocals. He continues to have a productive music career to this day. In 1989, he released Guitar Shop, which was mainly an instrumental album featuring some fantastic guitar tunes. The first solo on the list is from Big Block. Motley Crue were huge in the 80s, and they ended up the decade with an album called Dr. Feelgood. It featured some songs that became pretty big and the fantastic guitar playing of Mick Mars. Here is the second solo from the title track, Dr. Feelgood. Gary Moore was an amazing guitarist from Northern Ireland who sadly died in 2011. His glory days were certainly in the 80s, where he released 6 great albums. In '89 he released After the War. Here is a solo from the title track, After the War. Now you've probably never heard of the next guy. He came out playing for the Yardbirds in 1963 and formed Cream in 1966. He went on to have a long and successful career as a solo artist. Of course, I'm talking about Eric Clapton, one of the most influential guitarists of all time. In '89, he released Journeyman. Here's the solo from Bad Love. Well, you knew it was coming, and we might as well get it out of the way. For the uninitiated, Joe Satriani is one of the biggest guitar gods who came out of the 80s. In '89, Satch released his third studio album, Flying in a Blue Dream. This amazing piece of work is a primarily instrumental album, so pinpointing a particular solo was a challenge. I could have chosen any number of solos from Flying in a Blue Dream, but I settled on this one. This is the solo from Strange.
Strange.
Stevie Ray Vaughan, for those of you who don't know, was a renowned blues guitarist from Texas. He was instrumental in the blues revival of the 1980s. Sadly, he was killed in a helicopter accident in 1990, just 1 year after he released the critically renowned album In Step. Here's the solo from Crossfire. The next band are Virtual Unknowns. You've probably never heard of them. They only formed in 1988 and released their debut album in 1989. The band is Bang Tango and the album is Psycho Cafe. Despite being largely unknown and arriving right at the end of the 80s metal movement, this band had some great songs and some phenomenal solos coming from their guitar pairing of Mark Knight and Kyle Stevens. Here is one such solo from the song Love Injection. Brian May could have been an astrophysicist or a famous rock guitarist, but he decided to do both. Actually, he's significantly more well known for the latter. I shouldn't need to tell you about the success and ability of Queen. They were one of the biggest bands of the 80s, playing stadiums and selling over a dozen albums. Quite a lot more than a dozen, actually. May is known for multi-part harmonies and some interesting and varied solo work. In 1989, Queen released The Miracle. Here's the second solo from I Want It All. One of my favourite 80s artists is Billy Idol, and if you weren't aware, his guitarist Steve Stevens is phenomenal. In 1989, Steve Stevens released his first solo album, Atomic Playboys. 2 years earlier, he won a Grammy for his work on the theme song from the movie Top Gun. Steve is a great guitar player with a white-hot tone. Here is the solo from Atomic Playboys. By 1989, the British post-punk heavy rock band The Cult were huge. They were about to get huger with the release of Sonic Temple. This was one of the best albums of the year, featuring the guitar stylings of Billy Duffy. The last solo on my list is from Sun King.
Let me tell you people, and listen good. I'm sitting crawling like a tired dog.
Well, there you have it. 10 of the best guitar solos from 1989. Let me know what you think. Did I miss anything? Do you completely hate my choices? What solos should I have included instead? Nah, you know I'm right. These are the best. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Please like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.